Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you the process I used for creating this snowy landscape in pixelart. So I didn't really have that much time to make this image, so I thought I should make a couple of thumbnail sketches to figure out what I wanted. And the first one was basically just the initial idea that I had. The middle one was mirrored but having like trees in the back frame the house, and the last one was having the house centered, but it kind of felt unbalanced even though it's centered, so I went for the second one. And what I do initially is just make a new layer, and this is a 230 by 150 image, I think something like that, and I just redo the sketch to figure out the size. And I made the house a little too small, I made it a bit bigger then, and I'm really drawing over the lines because this drawing is going to go away. It's not really for me to use as a line art layer, it's more to use as a reference for scale and proportions. So I start by adding this dark grayish blue as my overall color, my average color of what the scene is supposed to look like. This is a night or evening scene, and the windows on the cabin are going to be lit. And I'm playing around with contrasts mostly because I want to give this idea that the snow, even though it's night, the snow is still very reflective, which is a particular characteristic of snow. And these trees are going to be covered in snow. I mean, there's snow everywhere, so it makes sense that those trees are also covered in snow, as well as the ones on the left further back. But I want to give that thickness of the snow on the roof. That's why it has such a wide shadow on the right side. Here, for making the wood on the cabin, I really don't even use brown. I use purple, but it's so desaturated that in contrast with all the blue in the image, it kind of looks like brown. Here I'm using orange, of course, because these colors, I want them to be warm and strong. And I create this effect of haze, or this sort of halo around the windows, just by adding a little bit of a transparent orange around the window frame. So here you can see that I'm keeping the thickness of the snow on the top of the roof by just leaving that space between the wooden frame and the top of the snow. And here I'm reflecting some of that light from the window on the snow on the ground, because again, it's very reflective. And I'm trying to reflect it vertically aligned with the windows, because that's kind of how reflections would work in this situation. And because of the zigzagging at the bottom there of the reflections, you can kind of give an idea that the snow isn't really that flat. It's kind of wavy around. And I'm trying to get some of that to Fresnel reflect back on the edge of the snow. Here I'm adding a chimney because I'm planning to have snow and to have smoke coming out of the chimney. It's going to be my very last thing in this image. If you notice, I'm using the same brush for everything. It's my variant sized pixel brush. It's a 4x4 pixel sized brush that actually shrinks to 1 by 1 depending on my pressure. So this is very much a sketchy kind of drawing. Sketchy in the sense of that it's pretty much like a sketch. And what I do a lot is I just find that light sweet spot on the pressure to actually add details and lines that are 1 pixel thickness. So here I'm adding this idea of like a little stream, which is going to cut this reflection in half. And this is a reflection of the moon. The moon is, you can see I just sketch it in there. It's not even circular. I felt like the mountain in the back didn't really look like a mountain, kind of looked like a really long cloud. So I add those patterns of snow on the cliffs. Now here's the complicated part. And this one, it turned out okay, but again, it probably needs a lot more love, so to speak. So I create the basic shape of the trees, and now I'm adding the shapes of the branches. And then after I have the branches, I go in and add the little leaves on the branches to sort of hang. And the idea here is that I can have the silhouette of a tree, and now with a selection, you can see me painting brighter shades, and these brighter shades are going to build up the snow that has landed on the trees and is stuck there. So basically I'm creating this gradient from dark to bright using the sort of the up-facing surfaces of the trees as my anchor point for making brighter and brighter shapes. And I take the selection away just because it's very distracting, and now I don't really need it because I already have that mid-tone blue to hold my shapes in place visually. And I gradually go and make the shapes brighter, so it looks like it's higher snow, it's brighter because it's getting more light from the light of the moon and the sky. And also I try to get rid of some of the pixels, the dark pixels on the top side of the trees, because it doesn't really make sense for really dark pixels to be on the top edge. And here I'm adding texture to suggest some of the wood planks, and not wood planks, I think logs. This is kind of like a log cabin, to suggest the way that the house is built. And here I try to suggest that there's a little bridge there that is covered in snow. So I take the reflections I have and I sort of steer the reflections in a way that it makes look it's like a little path, and you can kind of see me clear that away so that I can create this like swerving line. And here I fixed the moon because it wasn't really a circle at all. And I'm adding some snow deposits on the edges of the house. I'm breaking some of the shapes down so that they look more. I try to add light leading from the door, but it doesn't make the house look that warm if the heat is leaking through the door. So I kind of close it up and just add a pattern on the door. Here, to make the snow lighter, I take that bit of snow and I just desaturate it. It's literally that. It's just desaturated, making it look gray. Because if you want to go from blue to yellow, you can go through the greens, or you can actually desaturate so that you actually jump from one hue to another, which is a way to make the transition. The only thing that's missing now is the tree, and of course the smoke coming out of the chimney. So the problem with drawing trees isn't really getting an interesting tree shape. It's making it look 3D. And the way you make it look 3D is you have to imagine that some of the branches are coming your way. It doesn't really convey the 3D-ness in a flat color like I have now. So you kind of have to imagine or kind of anticipate what's going to happen afterwards. But I'm just building a tree that looks to me like it has an interesting silhouette. And some of the branches are getting really thick. And I think I have to fix that. But then I remember that snow is going to have to be on those branches. So I leave those shapes in. And here I'm playing with the positioning. So here I'm depositing the snow, and I'm using the thicker branches to kind of create the snow. And by putting some of that snow in front of the other branches, I create effective 3D. I basically say that one of these branches is in front of the other. So you can kind of get the depth of the 3D from that. And some deposit of the snow here. And I actually think it turned out pretty cool. Looks pretty 3D to me. And then I just sort of blend it into the ground by adding those highlights sort of to shape along with the ground. Here I have a pile of firewood just covered in snow. Maybe there's a tarp over it, I don't know. But I just wanted to add some details there. So here what I do is I make a selection for the shape of the the smoke. And then I take every shade of color in that selection and I just make it brighter. And that's kind of how I create that shape of smoke that sort of stands out from the trees. And that's pretty much it. It was a pretty fast process, and I hope you guys enjoyed it and that you learned something from it. And take care.